Thanks for tuning into this episode of Night Talk, Get to the Point, here on the Pittsburgh Cable News Channel. Now, before we get into our conversation today with our Get to the Point panel, I would be remiss if I didn't take a moment to talk about a very special and timely starting point, especially after two more events, one in South Carolina, one in California, that have the capability to spark more unrest, more mistrust, and more division throughout America. Sadly, this will not be the first time that I mention the dangerous repercussions of this dynamic between police and communities. I said this in August after the shooting in Ferguson. Many Americans hit the streets to protest the latest controversial death, just as they did last summer. Sadly, the protests this time echo the concerns not just for one life, but for a startling trend. In New York City, Eric Garner was asphyxiated during a heavy-handed interaction with police. Does that sound familiar to you, Pittsburgh? In California, a highway patrol man was caught punching a disoriented older black woman in the face during a pedestrian encounter. Does that sound familiar to you, Pittsburgh? In addition to Ferguson, there's also the questionable shooting death of Ezell Ford at the hands of the LAPD. In Colorado in 2012, a killer with semi-automatic weapons makes it out of a movie theater alive after shooting dozens in cold blood. In Ohio this year, a man dies in the toy section of Walmart with a toy gun in his hand, shot in cold blood by an officer that has a questionable past concerning justifiable homicide while on the police force. I said this after worldwide protest over the Ferguson and New York City grand jury decisions in December. Over the past few weeks, we have heard several phrases that will stick in our national lexicon for quite some time. No true bill. Hands up, don't shoot. I can't breathe. Many of us have thrown our hands up, exacerbated as to where we are with race and justice in America. The undeniable modern-day realities coming out of Ferguson, New York City, and Cleveland, among others, have prompted activists in Los Angeles, Chicago, and Washington, D.C. to act for a truer sense of equality. The hypocritical duality that we all share in this republic, which ideally stands with liberty and justice for all, taunts us with a choice. Is this yet another moment in time that haunts us with the scourge of American history? Or is this the time when a movement of analysis and action takes place for the sake of domestic civility and national sovereignty in the 21st century? And when discussing stop and frisk and justifiable use of force in January, I had this to say. Maybe we've just fooled ourselves into thinking that all of this is either about Eric Garner or Ezell Ford or Tamir Rice or Leon Ford Jr. or Jordan Miles or even Michael Brown and Trayvon Martin. It's almost like how we fooled ourselves into thinking that we live in a post-racial America after electing the first African-American president. If we're going to be part of a great region, as well as a great nation, we must speak with a genuine honesty and a humble directness. And to be honest and direct, we as Americans have not witnessed one decade in our proud history where the ties between local police and the citizens of their communities has not been gnawed at by mistrust, misconduct, and misunderstandings. Whether that goes back to public lynchings after mysterious police releases from jail 100 years ago, to fatal tactical raids in the 1960s, to atrocities from Rodney King to Abner Louima in the 1990s, to blotched police actions today. Every time we attempt to discuss and improve police relations with African Americans, we end up with red herring debates about how all blacks hate all police officers. We don't. About how all white police officers are all racist. They're not. Or bringing up past police behaviors and its impact on current conditions is nothing more than playing the race card. It's not. And now we sit at the feet of another dead, unarmed black man, this time shot in the back after an altercation with a police officer in South Carolina. We stand in the shadow of a man beaten by multiple police officers in San Bernardino, California. At the risk of being called a race baiter, a rebel rouser, naive, and opportunistic, I again say strongly, loudly, and lovingly, change must occur immediately throughout the United States if we are to stay strong as a people, secure as a nation, and safe as neighbors. Police, embrace your nature as humble public servants that we all appreciate and admit this self-policing, this misconduct, it's not working. Not with the presence of police unions, complex community challenges, political pressures, and media scrutiny all playing a role in this dynamic in a very public way. It's time to put together fully accountable, fully empowered, independent civilian boards that can recommend enforceable policy changes, guide institutional and community improvements, and, if necessary, and only if necessary, recommend criminal charges when police officers clearly act outside of established standards and the color of law. Self-policing these matters with internal investigations and promises to get this fixed from the inside out hasn't worked in decades. And based on video from California to Pittsburgh to New York City, and from Rodney King to Walter Scott this week, we have a serious problem that isn't being resolved with the methods currently proposed and in place. To build the necessary bridges of trust, good police officers need the help of others on the other side of the thin blue line so that we can all stay safe. African Americans, your fellow Americans in the gay community, just reminded you of the best way to push for policy changes. They got results. Why can't we? Each one of us cannot be more afraid of risking economic relationships or social status than we are of misconduct and unequal treatment. We cannot embrace our nature as people of African descent without also enjoying our rights as natural-born American citizens, encumbered with constitutional rights that we were secured by the blood of Americans of those from all creeds and colors over the centuries. If Indiana and Arkansas can change state laws in 72 hours over wedding cakes in the service industry, why can't we change policies to stop this trend of misconduct? Leadership, regardless of how you define it, you must value both partnerships with police forces as well as apply constant pressure to usher in necessary changes with all deliberate speed, not just typical political posturing. It does no good to access power players if you're incapable or unwilling to impact powerful change for the sake of a better America. It's a simple choice. Don't be afraid of change, or don't be in the way of change. Our region and our nation will not survive with the continued divisions between us as a people based on how we are employed, how we live, and how we are treated when encountering police. Yes, we have to fix issues of police misconduct when dealing with urban communities, but in addressing those, we must understand the bigger obstacle that holds us back from being true to our credo, that all humans are created equal, that they are endowed with certain unalienable rights, that among these are the pursuit of happiness, liberty, and life.